Chapter 10. Zip Plays Horse. Could Tinker have been the prowler at the house? "Oh, I hope not," said Holly. "Maybe you should get in touch with him," Mrs. Hollister suggested to her husband. He nodded and went to the telephone. He called Tinker and asked him to come over right away. In a few minutes, the clerk rang the doorbell, and Mr. Hollister brought him into the living room. "Tinker, is this yours?" he asked, holding up the handkerchief which Pam had found. The old man looked up in surprise. "Yes, sir, it is," he answered. Mr. Hollister explained that it had been found on their front lawn. "I guess I dropped it here tonight," he confessed. "You were here?" Pete blurted. Tinker explained that he had wanted to see Mr. Hollister about a delivery to be made the next morning. As he was walking toward the Hollister home, he saw somebody run into the backyard. "I wanted to see who it was," Tinker said. "So I followed him. But when I got there, nobody was in sight." "Did you hunt any farther?" Mr. Hollister asked. Tinker shifted from one foot to the other uneasily. I heard a police siren down the street," he said. "I didn't want to be caught prowling around your house, so I hurried away. I was going to tell you about the man in the morning." "I see," said Mr. Hollister. Then they talked about the delivery. "Before you go," Mr. Hollister added, "please show me where the prowler was." They went outside, and Tinker pointed out the spot where he had last seen the man. It was exactly the spot where the shrubbery concealed the cellar window. "That man did climb in," Pete cried. "I think we should search the cellar again," Mr. Hollister said. "Maybe we missed a clue." They all went down and began looking around. Even little Sue was wide awake now, and imitated her brothers and sisters as they hunted for a clue. Suddenly, she leaned down and picked something from the fireplace. "Look what I found, Pammy," she said, and opened her hand to show her sister. In it lay a pretty stone. It was white with pink stripes. Pam gasped. "It's just like the ones on Blackberry Island. Remember? The ones that looked like little Easter eggs. Holly, did you put any of your pretty stones in the fireplace?" Holly said indeed not. They were on her dresser drawer. Why? Pam quickly showed the clue to the others and explained that there are many of these stones on the shore of Blackberry Island. "Dad," she asked, "do you suppose that somebody who lives there has been prowling around our house?" Mr. Hollister did not think this likely because no one lived on the island. Tinker was sure too. "But this has gone far enough," Mr. Hollister said with determination. "We're going to catch this intruder." "How?" Pam asked. Their father gave them a mysterious look. "I'll tell you all about it when I come home from work tomorrow," he said. "But I'll give you a little hint. We'll take his picture." This was all he would tell. After the children had a snack of milk, bread, peanut butter, and jelly, they went to bed. Mr. Hollister made certain that the house was locked tightly, though he doubted very much that the prowler would return again that night. The next morning, the children were awakened by the barking of Zip. Pete looked out his window to see Dave racing around the yard with the dog. "Hi!" Pete called down. "Come on out, you sleepyheads. I have a great idea I want to tell you about." It was true that the Hollister children had slept later than usual. They had raced around so much at the state park the day before that each of them needed a good long rest. Once aroused, however, They quickly dressed and hurried downstairs to breakfast. After they had eaten, they all went into the yard to find out what Dave's new idea was. When Pete asked him, Dave said, "A dog cart. Zip could pull it." The boy explained that he'd seen pictures in a book showing children in Belgium riding in a cart pulled by a dog. "Gee, that sounds swell," Pete exclaimed. "I could drive it all over town," Holly said, "and give Sue a ride in it too." All the children were enthusiastic about Dave Mead's idea. "We girls can make the harness," Pam suggested, "while you boys make the cart." "Let's do it right away," Dave decided. "I'll go home, get a picture of the Belgian dog cart, and we can make ours just like that one." He raced from the yard and in a few minutes was back with the picture book showing the dog cart. Pam got a paper and pencil and made a sketch of how the harness was put together. "We have a couple of old wheels in the garage," Ricky suggested. "We could use them." Dave added that there was an old baby carriage in his barn. "I used to ride in it when I was little," he said. "I don't think my mother would mind if we used the body for our dog cart." Pete, Ricky, and Dave hurried off to the Mead barn, while the Hollister girls raced inside the house to talk to their mother. When they told her what they planned to do, Mrs. Hollister said they might use a few old leather belts that she had put away. As Pam and Holly cut the belts into strips for the harness, little Sue, who was watching, piped up, "We haven't asked Zip how he would like this. Maybe he won't like a pull a dog cart." "Gee, that's right," Holly replied. "Suppose Zip is pulling the dog cart and suddenly sees a rabbit. Then what?" "We'll stop him," said Pam. In a few hours, the boys returned with a cut-down body of an old baby carriage. They hurried into the garage with it. After a lot of hammering, the boys pulled a funny-looking contraption onto the lawn. 2 coaster wagon wheels were attached to the bottom of the old carriage. "Now, we have to get shafts that will fit on either side of the dog," Pete said. Ricky knew right away where to find them. He had seen a couple old clothesline props on the other side of the garage. Pete sawed the props into their proper lengths, and the 3 boys attached them to their new cart. "Let me try it out," Ricky begged excitedly. "Make believe I'm Zip." He backed in between the shafts, holding one in each hand. Then he started to gallop around the outside of the garage. "Hey, not so fast," Pete warned, as the cart took the corners on one wheel, but his brother paid no attention. On the next turn, the cart fell over on its side. The wheels and shafts broke loose from the body, which then turned over 3 times and landed upside down. "Now look what you did," Dave exclaimed in dismay. "We'll have to build it all over again." "I'm sorry," Ricky replied, crestfallen. "I'll help." He added with a twinkle, "But it was a dandy wreck, wasn't it?" "Oh, sure," Pete replied good-naturedly. "You ought to be on television." The boys went to work immediately rebuilding the cart, only this time they made it twice as strong. As they wheeled it toward the house, the girls appeared at the back door. "We have the harness all ready," Pam exclaimed. "We've even tried it on Zip for size, and it fits." "We need reins," Holly said, and Mrs. Hollister gave them some clothesline. The children whistled for Zip. The dog came bounding out of the bushes and licked Pam's hand. "Will you be a good horse dog and pull our cart for us?" Sue asked as she petted him. Zip looked at the cart and wagged his tail. "He means yes," Holly said. "Let's put him in the harness." At first, Zip did not know what the children were doing, and he wriggled around. Pam said, "I think I had better lead him along first so he won't get frightened." Ricky got into the cart, and Pam led Zip around the yard. "Oh boy, this is keen. He's really pulling it swell," he exclaimed. "I think Zip is trained enough," Pam said. "I'll drive the cart this time." She hopped in. At Pam's gentle guiding, Zip trotted around the yard, just as if he had been pulling a cart all his life. After each of the older children had taken 2 rides, Holly and Sue got in. They were halfway around when somebody called from the sidewalk. Yeah, all you sissies are riding in a baby carriage. It looks funny, ha ha." "Oh, that Joey Brill," Pam exclaimed as she saw the boy coming down their drive. "I want to ride in that," Joey demanded when he saw what fun they were having. Pete spoke up. "If you think it's sissy stuff, you just won't get a ride." At this moment, Holly and Sue were in the cart, and Zip was trotting around very proudly. "Oh, I can't, eh?" Joey said, sneering. "Well, I'll get even with you." With that, he cried out, "Zip, a cat, a cat! Shh! Get him! Although Zip was ordinarily calm while playing with children, he stopped abruptly when he heard the word cat and pricked up his ears. Up that tree! Up that tree!" Joey shouted again. Zip whimpered and raced over to the tree Joey was pointing at. The dog raced up on his hind legs and put his paws on the trunk of the tree to get a better look at the branches. As he did, the children shouted, for the cart tilted up on one end. Holly and Sue tumbled out head over heels onto the grass. "Now see what you've done," Pam cried out. "You'd better get out of here quick," Pete threatened, racing toward the bully. Joey decided he would not wait to be involved in a fight because Pete was really hangry. He raced off down the street, and the children helped the girls up. "Are you hurt?" Pam asked. Sue was crying a little. We're not hurted, just scared," she said. But she did not want to ride anymore. The others rode the dog cart around the yard during the afternoon. When their father came home, he laughed to see Zip, who by this time was weary, pulling the cart. Pete suggested that perhaps the dog cart could be used for delivering packages for the trading post. But Mr. Hollister shook his head and said with a chuckle, I'm afraid poor old Zip would really lead a dog's life if we did that. Let him loose and give him some meat and a big bone for his day's work." As Holly went to do this, Pam asked her father how they were going to take the prowler's picture. "You said you'd let us know," she teased. Her dad put his arm around her shoulder. "It's easy," he said. He quickly outlined his plan to the children. Pete had a flash bulb camera that developed pictures right inside of it. They would set it in the cellar so the prowler would take his own picture. "That's great," said Pete. After supper, he and his father went downstairs to set the trap. Pete picked up his camera, which had a string attached to the shutter. His father helped him stretch the string across the cellar window and the outside door. "If anybody comes in and touches the string, the camera will sure take his picture," Pete said excitedly. The children could hardly wait for morning. Pete even kept Zip in his bedroom so he would not scare the prowler away. Though all was quiet in the house that night, Mr. Hollister did not sleep much, but he heard no sounds to make him get up. Next morning, He and the children hurried downstairs. Pete was the first one to reach the camera. "Dad!" he exclaimed. "The flashbulb has been set off. We have a picture of the prowler."